Are you ready to take your business to the next level? Every day, there are countless books and articles that are published offering the key on how to make your business a success. It's easy to feel overwhelmed trying to keep up and run your business. That's why Deb Creer created the Business Power Hour. Keep up on the latest trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. Let the Business Power Hour do the heavy work for you.
Good morning. Good morning. I am Deb Creer, and I am passionate about giving professionals the tools that they need to make themselves and their businesses as successful as possible. And today, we're going to learn about being bold. I love it. I love it. So please join me in welcoming Leigh Burgess to our program today. Leigh, welcome. How are you doing?
Thank you so much, Deb. I'm doing great. It's a sunny day in New England, and that's always a good day.
Especially in the winter. Oh, yeah. Yeah. No nor'easters.
No, not today.
Very cool. Well, let me tell people a little bit about you, and then we'll jump into this.
Sounds great.
So it all began with a big swing of bold. After over 20 years in healthcare, Leigh Burgess founded Bold Industries Group, which is big, right? An organization that encompasses her passion for tackling big challenges that, when solved, make the world a better place. Through her signature Believe, Own, Learn, Design, which is, of course, bold, framework and approach, her goal is to create positive change and community building through consulting, coaching, and her Bold Leaders Collective membership program. She also does curated events like the Bold Retreat and the Bold Table. Her upcoming book, Be Bold Today, Unleash Your Potential, Master Your Mindset, and Achieve Success, comes out this November, and it will help you free your inner boldness to live your most aligned life personally and professionally. So again, Leigh, welcome.
Thank you very much.
I love it. I love it. And for those who are just listening, she has this wonderful shirt on that says, Be Bold Today. And, right, we want to be bold every day, right? That's the thing. So this is so fascinating. Tell us a little bit more about how it is that you got to where you are today.
Yeah, so obviously it's a journey for me, and I think every day kind of still figuring out life and figuring out the best way that we can align our passion and our purpose. And that's really what I've been trying to do. But there was a moment in time at 48 where I was like, I really want to live the life I'm meant to live. Okay. And I felt I got to a place I was burnt out. So that's where I made that big swing of bold and founded my company. Just 4 years ago. And I decided that I wanted to be more aligned with who I am, how I operate. Obviously, I had a wonderful career in corporate healthcare, still operate in that way and doing consulting with organizations in an interesting way, particularly in healthcare. Things can take a long time. Things maybe don't move as fast as we wish they could or would. And I'm an innovative agitator. So I'm someone who's going to be pushing and pushing. So I worked in incredible organizations that helped me actually use that skill set for good to make a difference. But for me, one of the challenges, I think, is that things would take too long. And I think those can wear you down, or, politics and history in any organization, I think sometimes can be pretty heavy. And just being able to understand how to maneuver those and how to, work with them and still be aligned with who you are. So I just got to a point where I just said, I need to do something different. And I did. So I took that big swing of bold, founded my company, and really started off doing consulting, and then adding coaching, and then adding curated events, and then the collective. So the 4 C's. So if you think of kind of the things that I do, and I really did that thoughtfully over time, even though it's been 4 years, it doesn't seem like it's gone very fast. And then being able to build that community, which they've named themselves the Bold Tribe. And really, I think what's interesting about that is someone asked me yesterday, how do you create community? And I said, really, I create the space and the place, and they create the magic.
Right.
Really, the people in it, the people that that you connect with, the women, particularly women leaders across different industries. It's just been an incredible to see it come together. So my journey has been, starting off early on, just being a bold young lady, throughout my life, and then just really kind of working my way through college, and then getting to the point where I, got into the corporate world, and really my thing in corporate was like, what's next? What's next? How do I keep going? How do I keep learning? So lifelong learner, pretty driven individual, and just really got at life. And there was a whole lot of bold in that intro, right?
I love it.
Yeah, but I don't think I ever talked about being bold or entered a room and said I'm bold. Now it's hard to like go a day without hearing the word 100 times, which never gets old for me. But I think, it's interesting. People don't realize how bold they are, or how, their bold moves may be inspiring other people.
Right.
So I bet you have many listeners who are just as bold as me, making bold moves and doing some of the things that I described.
Right. But I think you're right. There are so many who are afraid to be bold. And I think especially with women, right? Because that B word can be a different B word real fast. And right, you can turn into that as opposed, because bold is putting yourself forward, putting yourself out there. And sometimes it is a fine line. And even if you are not, if you're not being that other B word, sometimes it's interpreted that way, especially by others, men, who might be threatened by that, right?
Or women. I mean,
right.
yeah, I think it could be either. I think people feel threatened. I think sometimes your confidence irritates, potentially maybe something in them, and you're not doing it on purpose, or you're not trying to do anything.
Right.
I certainly have never ever want to hurt anyone or make anyone feel bad.
Right.
But I also don't want to dim my light for others, which I think as you go through life, you may do that more times than others, depending on, whether you're trying to fit in, or whether you feel you might be being judged, or you feel the fear, right? So my definition of bold is stepping into the fear, moving through it, knowing that you will learn something. You will be able to figure it out.
Right.
Having confidence in yourself to do that, which is not easy to say, so I think that comes over a lifetime of learning and failing and succeeding and figuring out who you really are and who you want to be.
Well, and I think the important thing is bold is not that you have to be in charge or, all of those things, but it's about kind of owning yourself, as and really saying, this is what I'm going to do.
Right. That's actually the second letter of the framework. So the first one's believe, the second one is own, then we learn, and then we design. And we really do go in that order.
Right.
And we start with our beliefs and what we believe, like what I believe about myself, what I believe about how I grew up. How are those beliefs helping me today? Or are they harming me or holding me back?
Right.
And really digging into that. And that one you spend some time in, right? Because it's not easy. Because I remember the first time I started with one of the coaches that I believe in coaching, and I have my own coach, and she said,
I tell people Michael Jordan and Tiger Woods have coaches.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, I believe. I'm a believer for sure. Exactly. And so if I'm in MJ's league, then that's great. But one of the things we started off with, she's like, we're going to talk about shadows. And I was like, well, that's okay. I don't have any, like we don't need to talk about it. And it was just kind of this pause because everyone has them. And they're called shadows because you might not know they're there. Right. And so like digging into our belief systems and thinking about that and getting to ownership, which you just talked about, was like, what do I own? What should I not be owning? One of the things I learned when I kind of went through the framework initially, which is lovely about the framework, is you don't just do it once. You may need to go back and revisit certain letters or maybe do the whole thing again. But when I got to own, it was like, was I owning things that weren't mine to own? People's opinions, people's expectations, sometimes my over expectations of myself, like give myself a break. And so thinking about that ownership and then celebrating how far you've come and thinking about what you've learned, which you kind of then roll into that, the L word, and how do you apply that? And I think what's interesting too, when you talked about, being bold is not being in charge. It doesn't have to be loud. I think some of the myths around bold is
we think bold, right?
It stands out. It's like, and that's kind of probably because when you bold something in writing,
it's darker. It
stands out. Exactly like what you said. But I think what's unique is bold. It can be very, very quiet.
Right.
It can be thought. It can be
Mhm.
planning. It could be quiet
Mhm.
conversations with friends or loved
Mhm.
ones. It doesn't
Mhm.
have to be on social media. And
Mhm.
you're being bold. But
Mhm.
what's bold about that is you're thinking like something can be different,
Mhm.
something can be better.
Mhm.
Maybe I'm curious.
Mhm.
That's bold. Like you're
Right.
exploring.
Mhm.
And then you go into design, and the D is really all about designing that life you want
Mhm.
to live. And it may look different at 20 or 30 or 40 or
Mhm.
50 or 60 of what that looks like,
Right.
but you're the architect.
Mhm.
So you're the one that can make it happen.
Mhm.
I think sometimes that's the hardest thing to have for
Mhm.
people is that they're waiting for someone else potentially to give them
Mhm.
permission to
Mhm.
be bold or
Right.
permission to be curious, or
Mhm.
they seeking potentially approval that
Mhm.
it's okay.
Mhm.
And sometimes we have to step forward without that
Mhm.
potentially, or with the unknowing of like,
Mhm.
is it going to work?
Right.
Is it actually going to be
Mhm.
okay?
Right. And I do think it's harder as a woman. And I'm at the very tail end of the baby boomer generation. And like when you go back to believe
Hmm.
and own, I was told, shh, little girls don't do this, don't do that. I remember now anybody who knows me knows that I am pretty vivacious. I'm an extrovert. I mean, all of those things.
Right.
I had somebody say one time, "Oh my gosh, it's a shame you're shy," and I'm like, "Did you meet me?" Um, but I was told by my boss one time at a company that I needed to tone it back,
Mm.
and
I've been told that.
yeah,
I got
yeah,
this,
yeah,
bring
and
it
you're
down.
like, and then of course you get well, for one thing, I got annoyed and I thought, but
Sure.
then I was so concerned with dialing it down, toning it back, whatever, that I was no longer authentic to myself.
Hmm.
And and that person hadn't meant to do that,
They thought
but
they were helping you most likely.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it's like, no, I'm kind of the Lucy, the Lucy character. Hello, how are you? Right.
Yeah.
But we do know, when hopefully we do, when we do need to, as you said, have those quiet conversations and things. But it is, as you said, those shadows that are with us. In many cases, we're the people who meant to help us. And instead, maybe it was their own fears that they were sharing with us. They were afraid to step out and be bold and, all of those things. And so they didn't want us to get hurt. So we have to work through all of that. And it can be a very painful process.
Right. It has to be intentional too. I think
Mhm.
that's what I've realized
Mhm.
is like, oh wow, like I am afraid of that, but
Mhm.
why?
Right.
Oh, my mom was, or my
Mhm.
sister was, or maybe it's just I had this silly fear I've never really
Mhm.
rationalized. It's
Right.
really irrational.
Mhm.
And I think working through that, but owning it, like
Mhm.
I have to own, like maybe
Right.
that was really not something I should
Mhm.
be afraid of. Or maybe that's something, someone, and your parents love you, your friends
Mhm.
love you, they want the
Mhm.
best for you. But sometimes we take on
Mhm.
potentially their concerns, and that
Mhm.
could stop us from
Right.
trying
Mhm.
something or doing that a different
Mhm.
degree or maybe going a different path. And
Mhm.
that's really kind of a convention or
Mhm.
something that someone's thought we should do or where we should go next. And sometimes being bold is just saying, I really need to think about if
Mhm.
that's really where I want to go, if that's
Right.
what I do. I mean, that's a
Mhm.
bold move
Mhm.
to kind of work against someone's
Mhm.
expectation. And not everyone will be on the bold train,
Right.
So
Mhm.
sometimes you realize that you have things in common with other people, and it might only be the challenge or the
Mhm.
strife or the annoying, coworker or whatever it is. And that's all you had in common with that
Mhm.
person. And once you intentionally say, I'm not going to spend my energy
Mhm.
on negativity or
Right.
spend my energy on things like that, I'm going to be happy and I'm going to choose this.
Mhm.
You may not have anything in common,
Mhm.
and therefore they might not be happy for you that you're
Right.
kind of moving forward. So
Mhm.
that's definitely something I went
Mhm.
through when I first became an entrepreneur, because people didn't understand
Mhm.
what the heck I was doing. And to
Right.
be
Well,
to be
especially after such a long and good career in
a
corporate
great
America.
career, great
Mhm.
organizations,
Mhm.
learned so much from all of them. That's
Mhm.
the point.
Mhm.
But I knew I needed to do something different,
Mhm.
but people didn't understand, like,
Mhm.
because I think there's a sense of stability and
Mhm.
routine and
Mhm.
rationalness what that comes with a job when you work
Mhm.
for an organization,
Right.
a certainly
Mhm.
credible or
Mhm.
organization what I was at. but I think there's this opportunity of like, okay, I could do something different, and
Mhm.
maybe I could do even more and
Mhm.
be even more of me. You talked about
Right.
being authentic.
Mhm.
And I think it is interesting when you're in that space and place within
Mhm.
organizations that you do like it is hard to be in an organization, and I totally get it, and be 100% you, because you
Mhm.
have to work with
Right.
other people, you have
Mhm.
all these different personality
Mhm.
types. Everyone isn't an introvert or an
Mhm.
extrovert. Everyone doesn't, like, my thing is
Mhm.
like, let's just solve the problem, let's put it on the table, and
Mhm.
like let's get at it. It's
Mhm.
just more efficient for me.
Mhm.
But that's not how it works
Mhm.
with everyone else. That maybe makes someone else uncomfortable.
Mhm.
Maybe they need to kind of hear all the facts
Mhm.
and all the data,
Mhm.
like there's different ways of learning and
Mhm.
understanding it. And as we get older, we understand how
Right.
to
And we're like, no. Mm-mm.
it doesn't mean that it doesn't annoy us every now as like
Right.
someone who's a straight shooter,
Mhm.
but I think I honor and I respect how other
Mhm.
people learn more
Mhm.
than certainly I did maybe in my late
Right.
30s or late 40s, where I
Mhm.
was just like, let's get at it.
Mhm.
And I think that's something too of just as you're bold, realizing everyone's definition, you may
Mhm.
have some commonality, but it might be different.
Right.
Someone being bold, maybe just be thinking about, I really want my relationship to be stronger
Mhm.
with my husband.
Mhm.
So I really want to start doing things together and
Mhm.
without our phones, without a
Mhm.
TV, want to go outside. That's
Mhm.
bold. Like having
Right.
that
Mhm.
conversation with your loved one to say, I want to do something different. Could be you don't want to go to college.
Mhm.
You want to be an entrepreneur. You want to try something
Right.
new.
You want to go to trade school.
Yeah. You don't want to
Mhm.
go to school at all. Like,
Mhm.
I don't know. Like those could be
Mhm.
things that could create
Mhm.
some bold conversations
Right.
with others who have expectations.
Mhm.
You may want to get to the next level in the organization you're
Mhm.
in, but you have to be
Mhm.
able to talk about that. And I
Right.
think you made a point about it's harder for women. Scientifically, women make less bold moves than men.
Right.
It comes from,
Mhm.
I think, owning, I think,
Mhm.
and having agency
Mhm.
and having courage and
Mhm.
confidence. So those all kind of go
Mhm.
together as ingredients with our boldness. And
Right.
at some point in our lives, someone told you like, shh, be
Mhm.
quiet or be calm. I was told early on the girls don't play sports and girls
Mhm.
don't, do this or that. And I was
Right.
like, oh, please, I'm going to play.
Mhm.
So I think in those types of moments when we're
Mhm.
young, they leave
Right.
imprints, and then
Mhm.
sometimes we need to pick them up, whether they were good or
Mhm.
bad, figure out like, are we still carrying
Right.
that? And
Mhm.
if it's not helping
Mhm.
us, like let's
Mhm.
jettison it and not
Right.
have it on
Right.
our backpack
Mhm.
anymore.
Mhm. And as you were talking, one of the things I was thinking about is that now I don't have kids, but as parents, it's so important to encourage your children to be bold. I have a very good friend who has four absolutely wonderful children. And as you were talking, I thought exactly about her. I
Mhm.
thought, oh my gosh, she encourages all four of her kids to be bold every day.
Mhm.
And some of us are a little like, oh, because it's not always traditional. It's, all sorts of things, but these kids are wonderful. They are, they're still all teenagers. But when I spend time with them, they carry on conversations with me. They're not looking at their phone,
Mhm.
but one of the things that she encourages, and her husband also, is that they make their own decisions. Now, they're not going to let them do anything that hurts themselves or something like that. But an awful lot of it is, you know, you've thought this through, or have you thought it through, and make those decisions. And I think we can do that with people, whether we're working with them, whether we're their parent, whether we're just their friends. It's how can we encourage others to be bold?
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's an interesting point. There's a sense of freedom
Mm-hmm.
that's given to someone to figure things out,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
And as parents or as best friends
Mm-hmm.
or as daughters, you want to
Mm-hmm.
tell your parents what to do, maybe you have to let them think it through.
Mm-hmm.
You have to let them go through those
Right.
paces, because telling someone is not the same as someone maybe
Mm-hmm.
experiencing something.
Right.
And you don't want anyone to get hurt or harmed,
Right.
like you said, but there is some like trial error, kind
Mm-hmm.
of the growth mindset,
Mm-hmm.
which is a big part of the bold framework, which
Mm-hmm.
is you're going to learn through things that don't work as
Mm-hmm.
much as things that
Right.
do. And
Somebody
I
might
think,
say that stove is hot and you're still going to put your hand on
yeah,
it. Or at
oh,
least maybe not
yeah,
put but you're going to get a little close to it,
yeah,
right?
yeah, you're
Mhm.
going to, oh, it is hot, right?
Yeah. Oops.
So,
Hmm.
yeah. So, and this goes into our adult life as
Hmm.
well. And I think, it's just important for people to realize that your definition of bold
Mhm.
is your definition. So you
Mhm.
said she encourages them to be
Mhm.
bold and by their, like, however they define it, right?
Mhm.
So like my boldness is not the same as yours, is not the
Mhm.
same as someone else. There's commonalities.
Right.
Some people might say being bold is being fearless. I
Mhm.
think it's like I'm scared every now and then. Like it
Uh-huh. Right.
so, but there's no judgment on someone
Mhm.
saying it's being fearless. But I think what they mean by
Mhm.
that is like stepping into it,
Mhm.
knowing, there is that
Mhm.
sense, but fear is meant to actually protect you.
Right.
I
Mhm.
think there's a sense going back to kind of thinking it through, like you said, of there's a myth that being bold means that you this leap
Yeah,
without
you
looking.
leap first.
I
Mhm.
don't think
Mhm.
it is. Being bold is one of the most pragmatic,
Mhm.
thoughtful
Mhm.
processes that you can go
Mhm.
through because you are definitely thinking it through.
Mhm.
I mean, I think it's just this, we see like this superhero in a cape or
Mhm.
doing those type of things, and those are kind of, you just, probably visuals that someone may have when
Mhm.
we hear the word brave or courageous
Mhm.
or bold. We don't think of, Rosa Parks,
Mhm.
who sat on the bus.
Right.
That is
Mhm.
freaking bold, and she wasn't
Mhm.
loud.
Mhm.
She wasn't loud.
She
She sat
just sat.
quietly on the bus.
Mhm.
And so from the perspective of that, like that is a bold move that
Mhm.
resonates for me. That is a
Right.
quiet, bold
Mhm.
move, making a stand and saying, I belong. I
Right.
belong here.
And if
That was
she
her.
had been very vocal, very loud,
Mhm.
then she probably would have been kicked off the bus.
Right.
And
Right.
so her quietness
Her
is
quiet
what
boldness.
worked.
Right. Yeah. So I think that's the continuum of
Mhm.
boldness, which it can be
Mhm.
extremely quiet.
Mhm.
And it is really that thoughtful, that
Mhm.
pragmatic, that thinking things through or planning or creating,
Mhm.
what you want to do. Writing it down is so important.
Mhm.
And all the way up to the loud moments, like,
Mhm.
that you see, that the world
Mhm.
sees, that maybe on social media.
Mhm.
It's there, one is not better than the other or
Mhm.
greater than the other.
Right.
And I think that's really nice for people to realize too, that, they may have a loud moment, they may have a quiet moment,
Mhm.
they may always be the quiet moments. And there's
Mhm.
so much power
Mhm.
in each end of the
Right.
continuum.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and it's funny because you look at the quiet and we really do realize, how that worked. Rosa Parks, great example. Mother Teresa. I would doubt that she ever raised her
A
voice.
Dalai Lama.
Yeah, it was just kind of one of those, or even somebody, one of my favorites, and I tell people, I should have, I should have been British because I always thought the Queen was absolutely fantastic, and now I'm like, oh, King Charles, okay. But can you ever imagine Queen Elizabeth yelling at some? Oh no, she would not have, right? But
No.
pretty much all she had to do was like raise one eyebrow.
Mhm.
But one of the things that struck me about her bold was when they had the funeral service for Prince Philip, her husband, and they showed her sitting by herself. Which, I mean, yes, there are protocol reasons for that, but and one tear went down her cheek, and I remember thinking how incredibly strong she was, but she was also mourning, the loss of her life partner.
Mhm.
But she was always bold, with everything she did. But yeah, never raised her voice. Anyhow, not that you ever saw.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's interesting just her background and the history of
Hmm.
even how she came into
Hmm.
that role so
Right.
young. So
Hmm.
she, didn't choose that
Hmm.
role, right?
Right.
She didn't say, I'm going to
Hmm.
wake up and be a queen today.
Yeah, yeah. She
You
was
know,
like, mhm. I mean, she was kind of stuck with it, right?
She
But
was, yeah,
mhm,
which I think, but I think this the how it got
mhm,
to that place
mhm,
where she was the one,
mhm,
and then just how she found her
mhm.
way.
Right.
And I think sometimes we're finding our way,
Mhm, mhm,
so I think through our life what
mhm,
we do is we figure out kind of what
mhm.
what is life presenting
Right.
you know
Mhm,
to me
mhm,
today. What are my
mhm,
expectations and how am I going to
mhm,
operate, right? So
mhm,
like, things will happen that were unplanned. Things
mhm,
may not go your way. Things
mhm,
may work splendidly. I mean,
mhm.
I hope everyone has those types of days. We all
Right.
need them.
Mhm,
But I think it's how you react.
mhm,
And then I think being bold is part of that as well.
mhm.
Sometimes being bold is doing nothing.
Right. Mhm,
It's not
mhm,
always active either.
mhm,
So it's like
mhm,
sometimes I just need to chill. I need to
mhm.
sit back
Right.
and see what's
Mhm,
next. I
Mm-hmm.
need to see the bigger picture,
Mm-hmm.
because maybe today I'm too locked in
Mm-hmm.
on a specific,
Mm-hmm.
part of a challenge or a problem or an overall
Mm-hmm.
thing I want to see or accomplish. I maybe need to just sit back. And
Mm-hmm.
that's a bold moment to have
Right.
patience, which is
Mm-hmm.
not my virtue.
Oh
Uh,
yeah. Yeah. I want to leap in and fix everything, right?
yeah, like I want to
Mm-hmm.
fix it, make it better. I
Mm-hmm.
have ability to look
Mm-hmm.
ahead and look down the micro, macro
Mm-hmm.
type of views of things. And sometimes I don't want to wait for the thing to fall off the
Mm-hmm.
track. Let's make sure it doesn't. But
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you have to let it fall off the
Mm-hmm.
track, and
Right.
that going back to the parents
Mm-hmm.
that let their kids be bold,
Mm-hmm.
within reason, I think that helps them
Mm-hmm.
understand also the ramifications of their
Right.
decisions, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And, even as adults, and it's a good thing to learn, like if I do this, this
Mm-hmm.
happened, and now I don't want to do
Mm-hmm.
that again, right?
Right.
And I think sometimes as adults, we do make
Mm-hmm.
repeats of things so that we're like,
Mm-hmm.
wow, that's the same result I got the
Yeah.
last time.
Didn't
Well,
work
maybe
that time either, right?
don't do it, like maybe try
Mm-hmm.
something different,
Right.
which might be a bold
Mm-hmm.
move because it pushes you out of your comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the other thing with, you can't be bold and comfortable at the same time,
Right. Mm-hmm.
usually.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's in thought and quiet,
Mm-hmm.
it's probably a little uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Like, wow, I don't know if I really
Yeah.
like
Should I
my
be
job.
doing
Yeah, yeah.
something else? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know if I really find joy in my job. I'm really good at
Mm-hmm.
my job and I can
Mm-hmm.
make it work and I can
Mm-hmm.
do this or that, but I don't know if I want to keep doing it
Mm-hmm.
this way for the rest of my life. I don't know if I
Right.
want to wait for 10 years till I
Mm-hmm.
can retire. I
Mm-hmm.
think making sure you're living your life to the
Mm-hmm.
fullest every day, because no one's guaranteed that
Mm-hmm.
tomorrow, I think is really, really important for people to hear,
Mm-hmm.
because I hear so often of like, well, when I'm 65, I can do
Mm-hmm.
this. And they're like 55 years old. I'm like, that's
Right.
10 years.
Yeah.
You're
You
not
might
happy.
there's a satellite that's about to fall. I mean, like
Yeah.
literally right now
Yeah.
in the news, they've been talking about this.
Oh,
What if
geez.
that
Okay.
satellite hits you, right?
I don't
Then,
know.
yeah,
God.
you're not going to be 55 and in another day, right?
Yeah.
So why
Yeah.
not do stuff now?
Yeah. And then think about it and be
Mm-hmm.
curious. And I think that's encouraging
Mm-hmm.
someone to use and use
Mm-hmm.
their experiences in their life
Mm-hmm.
for their learning, right? And
Mm-hmm.
to help them design kind of what's next. It doesn't have to be tomorrow either.
Right.
Like it can be
Mm-hmm.
like by the end of the
Mm-hmm.
year, I want to have explored
Mm-hmm.
different things
Mm-hmm.
that I'm curious about. It could be a
Mm-hmm.
hobby, it could be a trip, it could
Mm-hmm.
be, you want to go to Italy sometime. But okay, first thing you can do is maybe take a cooking class,
Right.
learn how to make
Mm-hmm.
pasta at the local,
Mm-hmm.
store,
Mm-hmm.
or things that, you want to do,
Mm-hmm.
learn the language.
Mm-hmm.
And you're kind of, and then put a place on the map, on your like
Mm-hmm.
map of your journey for the
Right.
calendar for
Mm-hmm.
2026. So in
Mm-hmm.
2 years, I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to go to Florence and
Right.
I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
make pasta.
And start doing things, as you said, to make that happen. So that might be I'm going to put away X number of dollars every day, every week.
Hmm.
I'm going to have my vacation fund.
Hmm.
When I was growing up, they had Christmas bank accounts, right? And that way, and people put money in there for Christmas,
A layaway. I remember
right?
that. I don't even know if they do
And
that anymore.
I don't think so. I haven't heard
Yeah.
about those in a long
Yeah.
time. And so same thing. I mean, if you are planning that you're going to go on, a cruise, a trip, or whatever, don't start saving for it in 10 years.
Hmm.
Start saving for it now. It was interesting. I heard a radio commercial today where they were talking about, the best time to do something is now. And, and so it was a financial planner.
Hmm.
But, his premise was that, he remembered as a kid being sent home with this stick in a cup and you were supposed to plant the tree. And he said, if you planted that tree 20 years ago, now it's a very large tree.
Hmm.
But you can start your financial planning now, and all those things. But he said, if 20 years ago you had invested $1,000, potentially that thousand could be $500,000. Yeah, granted, that's kind of a big leap,
Yeah.
but maybe your thousand is 5,000 and that pays for your trip.
Hmm.
But you didn't put away 1,000 right then. You put away, maybe you decided, okay, I'm not going to go to Starbucks today. I'm going to take that $10 and put it in my jar.
Hmm.
And so how can we make those things happen? Same thing with, I'm going to, like you said, learn a different language. Okay, I'm going to learn 5 new words today. I'm not going to become fluent.
Right.
And so it's those little things to be bold about.
Yeah. It's taking the steps, not the
Mm-hmm.
leaps, right?
Right.
Again,
Mm-hmm.
going back to the myth around being bold is this
Mm-hmm.
big
Mm-hmm.
thing. Like
Mhm.
it could just be a step. It could
Right.
be a line you write in your
Mhm.
journal. It
Mhm.
could be $5 you save in
Mhm.
the month. You
Mhm.
know, I love the idea of a bold layaway, you know, like
Mhm.
I'm gonna
Oh,
make
I
my bold.
love that. Let's start that. Yes.
Okay,
Mhm.
good. The hashtag bold layaway,
Uh,
everyone. Yeah. So from the perspective of like, I'm going to save something, whether
mhm.
it's my time, whether it's
Right.
money,
Mhm.
whether it's I'm going
Mhm.
to prioritize, but I'm going to lay it away because I'm going
Mhm.
to have this bold moment, this
Mhm.
bold move that I want to make. And
Mhm.
it takes action. That's the other
Right.
thing boldness takes is
Mhm.
action. It's
Mhm.
not a passive thing.
No. No.
Bold
Mhm.
usually and like not be thinking,
Mhm.
not be doing something
Mhm.
actively to kind of, make a
Right.
change, do
Mhm.
something different.
Yeah.
You are the one. And I think
Mhm.
that's hard too. Like we
Mhm.
talked about earlier of like someone's not going to
Mhm.
say permission to be
Mhm.
bold today, Deb. Go
Mhm.
for it. 'Cause
Right.
you don't
Mhm.
you don't need it,
Mhm.
but I think sometimes we think we may need the
I think we do think sometimes that we need that permission, and maybe it's because we're thinking too big, right? We're
could
thinking,
be.
okay, and
Yeah.
but yeah, it's like, okay, well, if I want a promotion at work, they're not just going to give it to me.
Mhm.
There are steps that I have to take. And
Yeah.
so maybe it is learning new skills, whatever it is, but I have to do it. And that comes back to what you were saying with own.
Hmm.
I have to own those decisions and make those choices and then make them happen.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to hit me over the head with the wand that makes me all of a sudden know how to do, accounting or whatever. We have to learn how to do that, and or
Right.
whatever it is, it's that ownership piece.
Yeah. And I think that's a good place for people to think about. So they've
Mhm.
gone through their beliefs.
Mhm.
They understand kind of, doing a
Mhm.
belief audit in the book.
Mhm.
There's a belief
Mhm.
audit. And so like thinking about the things that support you and
Mhm.
really help you,
Mhm.
like I believe I was raised, I belonged at the table, the adult
Mhm.
table. We didn't
Right.
have a kids table.
Mhm.
Like that helped me learn how to
Mhm.
behave, how to
Mhm.
talk, how to have
Mhm. You had
conversation.
to act like an adult.
Yeah, well, I had to like, I guess it wasn't like I wasn't allowed to be a
Mhm.
child, but it was like I got to see what it was like to
Mhm.
be an adult.
Right.
And so I
Mhm.
think that
Good and bad.
yeah, right? Exactly. It's not always fun at the adult
Mhm.
table. Sometimes as an adult, I wish there was a kids table.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, they're going to talk politics, so I'm
Yeah,
going to go sit over here.
yeah, exactly. Let's talk sports. I'd rather talk sports. That's got some politics in
Mhm.
it.
Mhm.
But I think, from the perspective of the ownership piece,
Mhm.
is understanding how you
Mhm.
own your own actions,
Right.
right? How you hold the permission
Mhm.
slip.
Mhm.
And sometimes that takes a little bit of
Mhm.
time to work through that. And
Right.
sometimes it's not overnight. I
Mhm.
think being bold too is not something that's instantaneous.
Ah. Mhm.
I think there's a sense of like, I got to be bold right now. It's like, no, you
Mhm.
don't. Like, really be thoughtful, really
Mhm.
be think it through and kind of what could be next,
Mhm.
but don't perseverate it on so
Mhm.
much that it becomes no action. I mean,
Right.
that
Mhm.
boldness means you're moving forward, you're
Mhm.
doing something different, or
Mhm.
you're planning to do something
Mhm.
different.
Right. And I think one of the things is you need to think about why. Why are you doing that?
Mhm.
And that comes back to, are you doing it because somebody told you to? Now, okay, that might work,
Mhm.
but are you doing it simply because somebody told you to? Or are
Yeah.
you doing it because somebody told you to and you went, oh, that sounds like a good idea?
Yeah.
And so all of those things, there is that why that is in there.
Yeah. I do this activity with the women that I coach, and we start off with, creating your
Mhm.
goals. And sometimes one of the things you said is they can be really big.
Mhm.
Like, let's say it's a health goal. I want
Right.
to lose X amount of
Mhm.
pounds by
Mhm.
the end of the year.
Mhm.
Okay. But that's a really big goal. What are
Mhm.
you doing today
Mhm.
to actually work towards that goal? So let's
Right.
say I want to walk 10,000 steps a
Mhm.
day, which is still a lot.
Mhm.
So, okay, how are you going to do that? Where are you
Mhm.
going to prioritize your
Mhm.
time? Are you going to do it in the morning, the evening, the
Mhm.
afternoon? How
Right.
are you going to keep that time sacred for that?
Mhm.
What are you eating? How are you moving? What's your
Mhm.
mindset look like?
Mhm.
Sleeping. Like there's so many things that go
Mhm.
into our health that we may not think about when we
Mhm.
make that big goal.
Mhm.
So are you traveling? Because I hear a lot
Mhm.
like, well, it's really hard to keep my regimen up.
Yeah. When
Right?
you're eating out food,
Yeah.
yeah, it's almost
Yeah,
never
it can be
healthy for
hard.
you.
Yeah, it
Mhm.
comes down to choice, right? So I think that's the other thing that's important when you're being bold
Mhm.
is to think about your choices. I
Mhm.
hear a lot, oh, I don't have time for that. I
Mhm.
don't have this, I just can't fit one more thing
Mhm.
in. I'm like, well, that's a choice,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
The choice you're making. You're
Mhm.
prioritizing something over your health. You're prioritizing
Mhm.
over your goals.
Mhm.
And then going back to your question of why?
Mhm.
Why are you doing that?
Mhm.
What's coming up for you? Like,
Right.
is it because you can't say no? Why
Mhm.
can't you say no?
Mhm.
Right? Because sometimes being bold is actually saying no to things so
Mhm.
that you can say
Right.
yes to the things
Mhm.
that you really, really want in your
Mhm.
life,
Right.
for sure.
Well, and this is not being selfish either.
Mm-mm.
Because there are, and I think that's the thing that, some people might mistake this for is I'm putting myself first in a way that is like, okay, everybody else is secondary.
Mm.
No, you can still put yourself first and still value others.
Yeah. Well, if you can't take care of yourself, it's
Mhm.
going to be very difficult for you to take care of someone else.
Right.
Like the
Yeah, I tell
whole
people it's the whole
oxygen mask.
oxygen in the airplane thing.
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. It's the analogy we hear all the time, but it's so
Mhm.
true. How can you serve someone else? How
Mhm.
can you support someone else? How
Right.
can you make a difference in the
Mhm.
world, which is why we're all here,
Mhm.
if you don't take care of
Right.
yourself?
Mhm.
And that's like a hard pill to swallow,
Mhm.
honestly, I think, especially for women, because we're
Mhm.
trying to be everything to everyone and
Right.
make sure we
Mhm.
have this, I think for me, high
Mhm.
expectation that I'm, hitting it out of the park on
Mhm.
all levels.
Mhm.
And every plate can't spin at 100 miles.
Right.
You're
Mhm.
gonna
Some of
have,
those plates are going to fall.
they might.
Mhm.
And then you're gonna be like, oh crap, I gotta clean that up.
Yeah.
You know? And I've
Drat.
broken a
Mhm.
plate or two in my
Mhm.
lifetime for sure.
Right.
So, but I mean,
Mhm.
it's just like, wow, I didn't want that to fall. So why
Mhm.
did it? Like,
Mhm.
was it a relationship? Was it a
Mhm.
friendship? Was it
Right.
a habit
Mhm.
that you had? Like, I had
Mhm.
really good, walking habits, and now they've fallen
Mhm.
off by March
Mhm.
1st. Like, what happened?
Mhm.
So, but being intentionally thoughtful about
Mhm.
what it is that you really, really
Mhm.
want and how it's tied
Mhm.
back to those bold moves that you
Mhm.
said you want to make for
Right.
yourself.
Right. And some of them are going to be selfish. It might be, I am not going to associate with that person anymore. They are toxic, they are negative, they are whatever. Now sometimes you kind of get stuck with them,
Yeah.
but
I don't know
you
if that's
know,
selfish. I think that's
yeah,
setting a boundary because
it's
boundaries are
well, it's
set
kind
for
of
you to stick to.
self-preservation, right?
Yeah, it's more
Mm-hmm.
that than
Mm-hmm.
selfish, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think when you're selfless,
Mm-hmm.
meaning the opposite of selfish, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're never thinking about yourself. You're
Mm-hmm.
always thinking about others. You
Right.
could actually harm yourself
Mm-hmm.
because you're caring
Mm-hmm.
so much about your job. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, that was an example for me. Like I was literally sleeping 2 hours a day
Oh.
in August of 2020.
Mm-hmm.
So because of the pandemic, because of
Mm-hmm.
everything we were doing,
Right.
all the incredible things we were trying to do to help people and
Mm-hmm.
open studies and get enough,
Mm-hmm.
out there so people could, be saved, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
That's a heavy, heavy, heavy
Mm-hmm.
burden that I probably took a little too much. I owned a little too
Mm-hmm.
much there, Deb, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, that's being so selfless that you're
Mm-hmm.
harming yourself,
Mm-hmm.
your health, your
Right.
relationships, your mental, physical, emotional health,
Mm-hmm.
So I think being really thinking, you use the word selfish, but I know you didn't mean it in a negative way. You meant it's
Mm-hmm.
like I'm actually protecting myself.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Right.
self-preservation.
Mm-hmm.
I'm setting a boundary that I don't
Mm-hmm.
want toxicity in my life. I
Mm-hmm.
don't want negativity.
Mm-hmm.
The world has its own. Like we
Mm-hmm.
don't need extra,
Mm-hmm.
added in. So I
Right.
think that's an important piece
Mm-hmm.
too. When you're being bold, I think thinking
Mm-hmm.
about, if you do make that
Mm-hmm.
move or plan that change or think about the next
Mm-hmm.
level, because sometimes you just want to go to the next level. It's not
Mm-hmm.
that anything's negative, but you're
Right.
like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
I think there's more to this, or
Mm-hmm.
something could be different.
Mm-hmm.
You're actually helping yourself, which
Mm-hmm.
you don't even
Then
know.
you can help others. I mean,
Yeah, and
that's
you
the
don't.
thing. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you're inspiring someone most
Mm-hmm.
likely too,
Mm-hmm.
who hasn't tried something,
Mm-hmm.
or oh wow, I didn't know you could actually make a living, or I was so
Right.
to
Mm-hmm.
not, I don't want to leave a stable job. And I think that's interesting kind of in the
Mm-hmm.
world today of like, even when you work for a large
Mm-hmm.
organization, it can be very unstable, especially
Mm-hmm.
in some of the times we're having now, which
Right.
are very
Mm-hmm.
sad times with
Mm-hmm.
some of the way people are being let go and those type of things. But
Mm-hmm.
having that, oh, well, I already thought about what I could do
Mm-hmm.
because I've been thinking about being bold and
Right.
maybe making that. So I already have it, at least the straw
Mm-hmm.
man, or at
Mm-hmm.
least that's what I want to get curious about.
Mm-hmm.
And then you kind of go into that
Mm-hmm.
plan B with a little bit more
Mm-hmm.
pep in your step.
Right.
Still, I'm acknowledging that losing your role or your job
Mm-hmm.
is extremely
Right.
painful and negative,
Mm-hmm.
but it's like, okay, I have options now that I'm in
Mm-hmm.
control, then I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
go try something new.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Right. And that is scary. I mean, let's
of
be
course.
honest.
It is
It's
frightening.
when you're not quite sure what's going to happen when you make that leap, even if it's just, a tiny little step, which is why a lot of people don't do it.
Right. Guess what?
And
There's another step and another
yeah.
step. I think that's the interesting
Mhm,
thing. I mean, I was totally frightened
mhm,
when I did it. I mean,
mhm.
I didn't know what was next. And
Right.
I never let myself think about being an
Mhm,
entrepreneur before that very moment that I
mhm.
decided I'm going to do
Right.
it.
Mhm,
And it's really, really scary. I
mhm,
think, but what's interesting is like you right, you left, you
mhm.
right, you left, you're making those
Right.
steps and like
Mhm,
there you go.
mhm.
You have now learned
Right.
something. Oh, that
Yeah.
didn't work. Or
Mhm,
oh, I did.
mhm,
They did really like what I'm doing and they did
mhm,
feel a connection
mhm,
or someone I did make a difference.
mhm,
Or, the first time someone said that I inspired them, I was floored
mhm.
because I was just like, I'm just living my life.
Yeah.
I'm trying to like make
Mhm,
it.
mhm.
And I didn't have like, eyes on like I'm gonna be a gazillionaire or I'm gonna
Uh-huh.
do
Mhm,
I just wanted to like live a life that
mhm,
felt aligned for
mhm.
myself and my
Right.
family and that I had some freedom. And I
Mhm,
think that's something that's a nice partner with
mhm,
being bold
mhm,
is there is a sense of freedom that you have to make
mhm,
decisions, to have clarity,
mhm,
to get down to
mhm.
really the root of
Right.
really who you want to be and how you
Mhm,
want to operate
mhm.
and the difference you want to make.
Right.
And that freedom becomes fuel
Mhm,
for your right
mhm,
and left and your
mhm,
those steps that you're making.
mhm. Yeah, and I love that you talked about the fact that this can happen at any point.
Mhm.
It doesn't have to be, okay, I'm 20 years old and I'm deciding. No, it can be I'm 80 years old and I'm going to do whatever.
There is no
Mhm,
expiration on your
mhm,
dreams, Deb.
mhm,
They do not expire.
mhm.
Your goals don't expire.
Right.
You
Mhm,
could be 20, you could be 80, you could be
mhm,
90. I
mhm,
mean, it's incredible. I think longevity and the
mhm,
things that we're doing in our later
mhm.
lives now. And I hope I keep on living
Mhm.
because I think I've got stuff to do and things on
Right.
my list that I
Mhm,
haven't done.
mhm,
And I think it can happen at any age. You can
mhm,
be bold at any age. I
mhm,
mean, you think of like what a 2-year old or 2 to
mhm,
5-year-old, those are bold individuals.
mhm.
They'll tell you what they're the best at. They'll tell
Uh-huh.
you kind of, who they are.
Mhm,
They'll tell you what they learned,
mhm,
tell you how they can help you because
mhm,
they'll, kind of let you know. I
mhm,
think there's boldness that we kind of lose
mhm.
somewhere along the way,
Right.
potentially from kind of
Mhm,
what happens in
mhm,
that experience of being
mhm,
bold. And, like I said, you learn good and bad, meaning
mhm,
things that don't work and things that do.
mhm,
But I think holding on to that, at any age, you can be
mhm.
bold.
Right. And as you said, you can be bold multiple times.
Mhm.
Maybe your first bold was that's I'm not going to go to college to get that degree. Even though that's what my family, my counselors, whoever, all told me to do. And then it was I'm going to be bold and try for a different position at my company or a different job. And then I'm going to be bold and start my own company. All of these things. It like one of the things that amazes me is when I hear, hey, somebody's getting divorced after 30 years.
Mhm.
That's really bold. And it's, it's got to be incredibly scary, right? But
Mhm.
for them to say, you know what, this is the next step I'm going to take.
Mhm.
And same thing with I'm going to leave this career of however many years. And I mean, you did that after 20 some years, you went, I'm going to do something different.
I had to. Like,
Mhm,
I got pushed, I think, to the point of my health that I didn't
mhm.
have another choice. And I don't
Right.
want people to get to that point, right?
Mhm,
I think you should do do
mhm,
it thoughtfully and
mhm,
like planfully. And,
mhm,
because I didn't like start out the beginning of
mhm.
the year saying I'm going to resign at this
Right.
point in time. Like, it was a moment I
Mhm,
needed to move
mhm,
agilely and make that big
mhm.
swing of bold. But I
Right.
think what you were saying is like, there are decisions that you maybe have put off
Mhm.
because, oh, I just don't know if what people will think,
Right.
or I just don't
Yeah.
know if that'll
What
be
are they going to say about me?
if it's safe, right?
Mhm,
Or
mhm,
is that make my life unstable? But I
mhm,
think weighing that against,
mhm.
are you okay living the life the way that
Right.
you're living it
Mhm.
now? Like
What
maybe
do
you,
they say? A life of quiet desperation. Oh my
yeah.
gosh,
Yeah,
that's
that's
just
terrible.
horrible.
That's
Mhm,
terrible. Yeah, but I
mhm,
mean, thinking like, is there another alternative?
mhm,
Maybe you don't, maybe you separate, like you
mhm.
using your example,
Right.
and
Mhm,
then you start dating your
mhm.
spouse again, or you start doing
Right.
something.
You might reignite that
Yeah,
passion.
yeah.
Mhm,
Like, is that the only choice
mhm,
you have? And you
mhm.
have to make that decision
Right.
because maybe it doesn't end up with
Mhm,
a divorce or
mhm,
leaving each other. Maybe it's
mhm,
like we just need to like
mhm.
reset. We
Right.
need to do something
Mhm,
different. And you can do that with any
mhm,
relationship. you may find out after you take the time to do that and work through it that it's still the decision is a decision. But again, being bold is thoughtful, pragmatic.
Right.
It takes action. It takes, intention. And so I think that's one of the key things that, it isn't just something that you just decide that day.
Right. Right.
Some decisions go faster than others, but I think most of them take a bit of time.
Right. Yeah, it's funny. I was remembering a time when I was working with a woman on her LinkedIn profile, and she had decided she wanted to change jobs. And it wasn't that she didn't like her company or anything. It was just she wanted to change what she was doing. And so, we were working on her LinkedIn profile, and she said, her boss noticed. And which is, kind of one of those things that happens, and called her in and said, what's going on? And she was very honest and told him, I want to be doing this. That's not my career path here. And he looked at her and he said, it can be your career path here. Is there a reason you don't want to do it here? And it had never occurred to her. I mean, she just thought she had to leave to do what it was.
Right.
And so, I mean, the cool thing was, of course, she told me I got to keep my parking spot. But, it was, she kept that. Sometimes. Yeah. She kept the salary, the insurance, all of those things. But yeah, so it's not that we're completely, and so as we're exploring that, sometimes it is, you need to share that with others. Now, of course, it does get tricky if you're thinking of changing jobs, because they might say, okay, you're gone now. Yeah. Okay. So you just made that bold leap a little sooner than you were planning.
Yeah.
But yeah, sometimes, and I think that's the thing is sometimes we need that outside support in order to be bold.
Yeah. I think I think that's another myth, that being bold is a solo act. It's not. You have to take the action. I can't take the action for you. You can't take the action for me. But in the sense of like, it is having, individuals and people in your life where that they know you, they understand you, that inner circle, that bullseye of your relationships that you think about. And it's not a solo act in the sense of kind of working through the right, left, steps that you're taking, because there are going to be days that someone's going to say, well, I don't think that's a good idea. And you're like, okay, I disagree. I'm going to take it. And then you take it and it wasn't a good idea.
Yeah. And you're like, oh, oops.
And you're like, you were right, Bob. Like, I shouldn't have done that, and like, what did you see that I didn't, and having that conversation. It's not a solo act. The other thing is like the other myth about being bold, which is in the book, is being bold is you're always 100% confident. You're just the most
sometimes you're just scared to death.
You're just hanging on by a thread some days, like as an entrepreneur, it's like, what am I doing? Like that didn't work, or oh, I thought that would be a better response, or wow, I'm crushed they didn't like what I did, and so it's definitely something that you can have those moments where you just don't feel 100% confident, and that's very human, and being bold as well. So it's not a solo act, and it's definitely something that your confidence can be very high, your confidence can be in the middle or low, but you're still making the movement, you're still taking the action, and you're still learning, which is the whole point.
Yeah, I was just thinking it's all about the learning, and I think so many times we learn the most from our mistakes and our failures.
Yeah, 100%. I think, if someone says like, what have you learned the most from? It's absolutely things that didn't work. And so I think it's figuring those ingredients, right? Because sometimes they have a commonality. If you think about your life, if everyone listening, like, what's the last thing in my life that didn't work that's related to my goals? Right. And I'm thinking, like, is it something I repeated? Is it something that I've done over and over? Is it something I keep trying the same thing, but it still has the same flavor, but it's really not different? Then maybe you need to do something different, right? And so whether it's like
the fifth time you try it, it's not going to be better. Now, who knows? It might actually work and prove us all wrong. But
yeah, because sometimes you think like, for me, like, oh, should I just try harder because I don't want to give up? I don't want to be a quitter.
I don't want to admit that I was wrong.
Oh, I don't mind that. I'm wrong all the time. Sometimes I'm like, am I giving up? Like, did I not try harder? My thing, like, like my mantle of responsibility is like, I just need to try harder, do more. Just sometimes less is more, people. That's I want you to know. I'm learning that this year is like, you don't have to keep adding. You can actually take away.
Right.
That's a bold move in itself too, of just taking something off the plate. Don't have 100 spinning plates. Maybe only have 5, and pick the 5. And that takes time to figure that out.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it's the noticing and the
Mm-hmm.
being present and
Mm-hmm.
the going, okay, I
Mm-hmm.
think less would actually really help me right now versus adding
Mm-hmm.
to
Right.
what I'm doing.
Right. And I love the fact that the D is for design,
Hmm.
because we can't just be doing willy-nilly.
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
there has to be a plan in
Right.
place. Now, it's not
Yeah.
written in stone, but I think that's one of the things that we see. It's almost, back to, thinking about 2 and 3 year olds. They just do. They don't stop to think, here's what's going to happen if I do it that way. And and sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't, but we need to know, here's kind of where we're aiming towards, because that's going to show us, okay, if I want to have this job, I have to do this and this and this
Mhm.
in order to get that job. And so that's part of that designing.
Right. Yeah. And it originally came out of when I resigned from my role.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what do I want to do next? And one of the
Right.
things I love is design. I
Mm-hmm.
love creating spaces
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
places that feel good in my home or at
Okay.
my,
Okay. So true design. Mm-hmm.
yeah, well, initially, yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
at my events, so if you come to a bold table or a bold retreat, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
they're designed and very, very curated
Mm-hmm.
about your experience,
Mm-hmm.
that space,
Mm-hmm.
right? But it's interesting. There's, 7 principles of design,
Mm-hmm.
and if you think about, and it's things like harmony, balance,
Mm-hmm.
white space. If you have
Right.
100 pictures on the wall
Mm-hmm.
and
It's
no
like,
white space,
ah. Mm-hmm.
how can you really
Mm-hmm.
appreciate the
Mm-hmm.
art, appreciate
Mm-hmm.
the work, appreciate the talent that went into
Mm-hmm.
it? I've seen some really cool walls that have 100 pictures on them,
Mm-hmm.
but in the sense of like, think about the white space in your
Mm-hmm.
life. Think about, do you have too much furniture?
Right. Mm-hmm. I have
Do
too much stuff. We're
are
just
you
gonna,
are
I'm
you
gonna
are you
put it out
bumping
there.
into your
Too much
couch? Like
stuff.
maybe you need to move the couch to a different place.
Mm-hmm.
Like just thinking of some of the analogies and like
Mm-hmm.
harmony and balance of
Mm-hmm.
like where does it feel like life isn't in harmony
Mm-hmm.
and where is it things, I use alignment versus balance because I
Mm-hmm.
think balance is just something that is only momentary.
Right.
It's
Yeah. Work-life balance to me makes no sense, because you have two things. That means 50-50.
you're
And that
setting
is
yourself up
never
to
going to
be
happen.
balanced,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think, yeah, it doesn't happen. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's something that I think I grew up with, that there was going to
Mm-hmm.
be balance. And like,
Right.
I was always disappointed that there wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I just have
Yep.
really,
When you're working at 10 o'clock at night.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, or your boss is emailing you on a Sunday because that's when
Mm-hmm.
they work and they don't,
Mm-hmm.
that's just when they work. You don't
Mm-hmm.
have to be on late to answer
Mm-hmm.
that question. Just wait till Monday, but you really have to be
Mm-hmm.
on to answer that question. So that alignment, it happens
Mm-hmm.
to you can be
Mm-hmm.
misaligned, and just like your car
Mm-hmm.
can,
Right.
but when the light comes on or where you feel that tug to
Mm-hmm.
the right or left, like pay attention to it.
Yeah. Check
Because all
engine light is
yeah,
important.
it's really, really important. Yeah. Oil light, really
Mm-hmm.
important too.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's we sometimes don't pay attention to the
Mm-hmm.
check engine on our own lives. Like,
Right.
oh, I felt a pain here today.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm okay. I'm just gonna walk it off. Oh, it
Mm-hmm.
came back. Like, well, you should
Mm-hmm.
get that checked out. Why
Mm-hmm.
did you ignore it? Right.
Right.
So I think, thinking about those lights, those
Mm-hmm.
moments that come on
Mm-hmm.
for us that are telling us, hey,
Mm-hmm.
something's off or not
Right.
aligned. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't usually realign itself. Like
Mm-hmm.
a car that's not aligned gets worse.
Mm-hmm.
You've seen some of
Right.
them like going down the road, like they
Mm-hmm.
just keep pulling to the
Mm-hmm.
left. You take your hand
Mm-hmm.
off the steering wheel, and it's like, it
Yes.
doesn't go
We.
straight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
go straight.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just like your life of paying
Mm-hmm.
attention to that. So that's why I
Mm-hmm.
like the design piece, because you design it, you
Mm-hmm.
actually have gone through the
Mm-hmm.
framework, which you can go back to and revisit at any.
Right. Again, it's not written in stone, folks.
Right, right.
Mm-hmm.
And there's activities in the book and things and
Mm-hmm.
templates that you can use to actually
Mm-hmm.
help you kind of go back and
Mm-hmm.
revisit. And maybe what you defined as beliefs that were helping you
Mm-hmm.
at the beginning of the
Right.
year, at the end of
Mm-hmm.
the year, maybe you have a new set of
Mm-hmm.
beliefs. And
Mm-hmm.
maybe you also need to look
Right.
at what might be
Mm-hmm.
harming or helping you. Maybe the way you wanted to design your life
Mm-hmm.
now with more
Mm-hmm.
information, 3 months into the year, you have a new set of goals that you want to put out there and you can reset.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the other thing is, people make resolutions and they do all these things at the end of the
Yeah.
year.
Mm-hmm.
I think, the percentages of keeping it up through February,
Right. I think January 18th is like the
yeah,
random number that everybody,
right.
you
We
you
get all
stop
excited.
trying to stop smoking and
Yeah,
losing weight and all that by
we get all
January
excited.
18th.
Yeah, we get all
Mm-hmm.
excited. We write it down. We create
Right.
that vision board.
Mm-hmm.
We do the things
Mm-hmm.
that are like, we really want to put out it, but we
Mm-hmm.
don't think about what are my habits?
Mm-hmm.
What's the
Mm-hmm.
discipline that I need?
Right.
who's going to help me?
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes you need accountability
Mm-hmm.
from somebody else to
Mm-hmm.
help you,
Right.
create your
Mm-hmm.
goals. And actually, achieve what you want
Mm-hmm.
to achieve. So I
Mm-hmm.
think thinking about that design too, so
Mm-hmm.
that it fits your life, your
Mm-hmm.
lifestyle. Everyone's not going to do a cold plunge, meditate, and
Mm-hmm.
read a book before they start work
Right.
every.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you don't do a cold plunge. Maybe you like hot showers. Like, I don't
Mm-hmm.
care. Like, no judgment. But I think,
Mm-hmm.
from the specifics of like how you're
Mm-hmm.
going to design your life
Right.
is very different from how I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to do it. But the point is that you have to take action on it, and you really want to be
Mm-hmm.
measuring your action on a
Mm-hmm.
regular basis.
Right.
So, like, did I achieve what I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
today?
Mm-hmm.
Not a month from now,
Mm-hmm.
because I think it is good to have those SMART
Mm-hmm.
goals that we all know,
Yes.
making sure they're
Mm-hmm.
specific and measurable and
Mm-hmm.
attainable, and and thinking about the timing and thinking
Mm-hmm.
about the realisticness of all of them.
Mm-hmm.
But it is, what are you doing today to
Mm-hmm.
work towards your
Right.
goal?
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't have anything in mind of like, what is my
Mm-hmm.
goal, start there. Just
Mm-hmm.
start with one.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I want to get
How
out.
do I make it happen?
Yeah, I want to get
Mm-hmm.
outside more. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
how do we do that?
Mm-hmm.
I want to eat healthier. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
don't buy things you shouldn't
Mm-hmm.
eat. That's
Mm-hmm.
a simple habit I
Yeah.
change.
Yeah.
Here.
Don't have that stuff in your house or in
Don't
your
buy the
office. Mm-hmm.
Ruffles chips, Lee.
Mm-hmm.
Don't buy the
Mm-hmm.
Coca-Cola.
Ah.
Yeah, I know it's a bummer, but I mean, if
Mm-hmm.
I don't have it in
Mm-hmm.
my house, I can't eat.
Right.
And that,
Mm-hmm.
it sounds really silly, like a
Mm-hmm.
habit, but it was a
Mm-hmm.
habit of buying it.
Mm-hmm.
And now I don't have that habit
Right.
and I don't need it. And do I
Mm-hmm.
miss it every now and then? Absolutely.
Of
Because
course.
it
We're
was a bad
human.
habit,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right.
so I've replaced it with something else. So now I
Mm-hmm.
drink a lot of tea. So
Mm-hmm.
like I get my caffeine from my
Right.
tea, my green
Mm-hmm.
tea.
I
So
love it.
thinking about the simple things you can
Mm-hmm.
do to replace a
Mm-hmm.
habit, because sometimes we think when we're being bold or
Mm-hmm.
making a change that we have to stop doing
Mm-hmm.
something, when you actually may, in the sense of a habit, you just need to replace
Mm-hmm.
that habit with something else.
Right.
And that's a nice
Mm-hmm.
way to look at it versus
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, it's a
Mm-hmm.
this or that. It
Right.
can all
Yeah.
or no.
I'm not going to be on social media as much.
Yeah,
So I'm going to read during that time.
right.
Well, oh my gosh, Leigh, we only have a couple minutes left. This has been great. And I think we need to have
Oh,
you on
fast.
again when your book comes out so that we
Yeah.
can talk more about it. But tell us more about the Bold Table, the Bold Retreat,
Sure.
and all of the other services that you
Yeah,
provide.
absolutely. So the Bold Retreat really was the first event that I planned. In addition, so I started with the consulting,
Mm-hmm.
really getting that going, and then I planned a Bold Retreat, which is all
Mm-hmm.
about mindset, strategy, and
Mm-hmm.
wellness. I think one of the things is you can go to all these different retreats that are wonderful, but it's usually one or the other. They're not
Mm-hmm.
always combined.
Mm-hmm.
So wanting to be efficient,
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to combine that, but
Right.
make it feel very special. So the Bold Retreats are all-inclusive retreats, and they're in wonderful locations that are
Mm-hmm.
next level, and they're not your normal where I go for vacation at
Mm-hmm.
all. And so in wanting everyone that comes to, just all they have to do is get there. Once you
Mm-hmm.
get there, everything's taken care
Mm-hmm.
of,
Mm-hmm.
everything's included. You get credits to the spa if you want to go to the spa, or use the
Ooh.
hotel in a
Mm-hmm.
different way for fitness, those types of
This
things.
the spring one is in Napa Valley.
Right. So we're going to Napa. So we've
Mm-hmm.
been to there. We've had four, and then we have our fifth one already sold out. So
Mm-hmm.
we've gone to the Outer Banks. We've gone to Amelia
Mm-hmm.
Island. We've gone to Aspen.
Mm-hmm.
Napa is coming up, and then
Yeah,
Santa
Santa
Fe.
Fe. Mm-hmm.
Santa
Mm-hmm.
Fe. Yeah. So, and then we're already scoping and scouting the next one.
Mm-hmm.
Those events are incredible events, and just a great place for you to come and meet women and
Mm-hmm.
be in a smaller group. The Bold Table is kind of the next level of it's not really a networking event. It's
Mm-hmm.
really a connecting event.
Okay.
And so I think that came out of me being somewhat of an introvert and really not liking large stand
Mm-hmm.
at the cocktail table with a
Mm-hmm.
prompt and have shallow conversations in in
Mm-hmm.
a hotel lobby, like
Mm-hmm.
in with, tan tables. I
Mm-hmm.
really wanted something vibrant and pretty and
Mm-hmm.
beautiful. Again, going back to space and design, I think
Mm-hmm.
that comes in.
Mm-hmm.
And I want people to have connections that are deeper. So
Mm-hmm.
those are dinners that I hold in different places around
Mm-hmm.
the US. We're about to have our eighth one since 22. We've been in Atlanta,
Okay,
Boston.
so they're real. They're not virtual.
No, they're real in
I
person.
love
I think
it.
that's what
Mm-hmm.
people really want too. They
Mm-hmm.
want in-person connection. The
Mm-hmm.
majority of the people who come to these tables fly in. So they're
Mm-hmm.
not all just because some people are
Right.
regional, but a lot of
Mm-hmm.
them do fly in because
Mm-hmm.
they've created connections of like,
Mm-hmm.
whether
Mm-hmm.
they're in the Bold Table or they've gone to a Bold Retreat, they really really
Mm-hmm.
enjoy the company of the women who attend. And then I created the Bold Leaders Collective, which is really everything bold under one house.
Mm-hmm.
And so one roof. And so it is a membership for women leaders across industries that comes together to create community, to connect. It's an incredibly, I think, vibrant community online. Every day we have an app and we have an online community. And then we do things by inviting guests into what's our Bold Power Hour. And I see power in the back of there. And we have Bold Power where I bring guests in from my podcast or from the dinners. And then we also do the in-person events. So any Bold event I do, all the members get access to those in advance, which is nice because there's a waiting list of over 1,000 people.
Wow.
At the table and their retreat. Yeah, to attend.
I love it. So how do people find you?
Yeah. So my website's the best place to find me. It has all the events. It has everything that we just talked about, the description, as well as the upcoming book. Everything is there. Soon to have the cover reveal and the title reveal. So, and I have something called the Bold Book Insider Club. So kind of just, it is interesting being an author and kind of progressing through this process too, and sharing that with people who are in the club and also with the members of the Bold Leaders Collective.
I love it. And it's leighburgess.com. Very easy.
Yes, to spell Leigh right. That's the key.
Leigh.
There you go. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Well, Leigh, this has been delightful. And as I said, we need to have you back on when the book comes out.
Okay.
So we will make that happen. But until then, do you have any final thoughts that you want to leave everyone with?
I think just for everyone today, I want you just to think about what your definition of bold is. And then think about in your life, when's the last time you remember being bold based on your definition? And are you living that life that's aligned with what you want to live with regards to your passion and purpose?
I love it. So much fun. This has been a delightful conversation, and I really can't wait until we do it again. Until then, I'm Deb Creer. I've been speaking with the wonderful Leigh Burgess, and everyone have a great day.
Thank you very much.
Tune in for our next program for even more trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. The Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer, is proud to be part of the C-Suite Network.